ගෞරව MP Sumanthiran.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chairman, for the opportunity to participate in this debate on the adjournment motion. On the statement made by the Honorable Prime Minister on the 8th of March with regard to the economic state of the country and several revisions that he proposed to the annual budget proposals made by the Minister of Finance in November last year. The Prime Minister stated to the House that the country's debt has now increased to 9.5 trillion rupees after adding the hidden government dues, which he says amounts to 1,442 billion rupees. Now, this is a strange statement to make, to say that so much of government dues was kept hidden, unknown to the government, and that now it has come to light, and therefore it has necessitated a revision in the budget proposals in order that the budget deficit, which has grown as a result of these hidden dues coming to light, and the revenue needs to be increased therefore. I say strange because I don't think this has ever been stated before, that a government, even a new government, comes and says that when we made our budget proposals, this is what we thought was debt, but now we find that it's actually much more, and move to revise their proposals. That in itself shows a certain picture of the capacity of the new government. I say government including officials, and not just capacity, but forthrightness as well. Because this is not just ministers changing seats. There are officials, high officials, who continue in their positions in the Ministry of Finance, in the various ministries, who have signed loans, who have signed documents, who have committed the country to debt, and who continue even after the change of government. And therefore it is indeed strange that the government and the Prime Minister at that makes a statement that so much was kept hidden, which has come to light within the space of a short period of 6 months. He says a total of 1.2 billion has to be paid this year as debt service payments, of which 647 billion rupees is loan repayments and 562 billion rupees as interest payments. And this doesn't include the debt that has to be repaid by state-owned enterprises, which amounts to 1.442 billion rupees. The new debt, which is supposed to have been kept hidden, includes CPC 365 billion rupees, ports 260 billion rupees, Sri Lankan Airlines 211 billion rupees, and EPF and ETF overdue on the SLTB 21 billion rupees. Ministry of Highways alone has to pay 24 billion rupees. And all of these staggering amounts, the government says, was kept hidden. Whilst we understand that there can be some truth in saying some of this was indeed kept hidden, we are constrained to think that the government couldn't have been unaware of the general trend in which the economy of the country is moving. There is capital flight from the country, and there may be reasons for that. There may be external reasons for that. And yet, these are not things that could have taken the government by surprise. As the new government came into office in January last year and proposed a mini budget in February last year, there were a lot of reliefs given to the people, a lot of sweetness, obviously targeting the general election that was due last year. But after the election, in November, when the annual budget was presented, one braced oneself and got ready to hear the bad news, but the bad news didn't come in November last year. It continued. Kind of a Santa Claus budget continued, only for the government in 6 months' time to come and make this confession to the House and start changing their estimates, their proposals. This is not a good state of affairs. As I said before, it lowers the confidence that investors will have in this country. When you disclose to Parliament that somehow you did not know that such a staggering amount was due and that you made your proposals on false premises and now you have to adjust it. The foreign debt is a factor that we have lived with for a while. But it is something that successive governments seem to be comfortable to live with. It doesn't seem to be bothering us that a major portion of our expenditure is actually repayment of our debt. And unfortunately, no definite measures have been taken to reverse this. You can't do it overnight, we all understand that. But in the way that government proposes to spend money, and I wish to give some examples today, there is no indication that there is a desire to reverse this trend. Now, for instance, we are an island and ought to be exporting fisheries resources. But we import to the tune of 30 billion annually, fisheries products. All right, there may have been mismanagement. We may not have invested sufficiently, resulting in this state of affairs where a tiny island with such rich fisheries resources around us, and yet we pay a huge import bill. Now, if there was a desire to change this trend, you will see annually an increase in the investment in the fisheries sector, so that we will have greater returns, so that we will spend less on imports of fisheries products. But that is not to be. Only 6 million in the investment has been proposed in the fisheries sector. You have a 30 billion import bill of a country that is an island, and you propose to spend only 6 million in... Yes, please, yes. Yeah.
Because, as you rightly said, there is a nascent local industry. They are producing tins of fish here. Now, they cannot compete with the imported product price-wise. So what has happened is, we had the option of either destroying that industry completely or giving them a subsidy. This 6 billion is really going to Satosa, so that they can take in the local product and market it in a competitive way, Honourable Minister. It is not a subsidy given or an investment to raise the whole fishing industry. It is really a subsidy that is given to the local canning industry,
yes, so
that they can compete with the product. But I fully agree with you that we cannot afford to spend so much of money, so many billions of rupees for the imported product. But we have to on the other hand, we have to safeguard the existing people who have set up these factories.
All right, but Honourable Minister, your explanation only makes it worse. What you are saying is even this small amount of 6 million is going towards subsidy. It's not investment to uplift the sector. The state, no, that very well, private sector may have invested. But where is the incentive, where is the government policy of raising the standards of fishing so that we can compete? You know, I'm suggesting, you can have different views on this. I'm suggesting that something as obvious as the fisheries sector, the government ought to be investing much more in order that at least over the years, you come to a stage of being able to compete. Because it is not something that is impossible. It ought to be possible for us far more than it is for several other countries. So that's one. Take paper, cardboard import is huge. Paper and cardboard import is huge when our paper factories are idling. The Valachena paper factory hasn't functioned. Now, we have also been asking that you revive. Now, there may be issues with that. The other day, I was in the East attending our good friends Sri Lanka Muslim Congress annual convention in Palamuna. And on both sides of the road, we saw paddy fields being burnt. The Honourable Anuma Gamage was also there. Paddy fields being burnt. And we asked them, why are they burning these fields? And the reply we got was that earlier this straw, we could supply it to make paper to the paper factories. Now nobody buys our hay. So it's being burnt on the field itself. Now, we have so much of straw. I mean, we are an agricultural economy. We have so much of that raw material that is there. Now, that's going waste. So, the point I am making is, I am coming to some other issues. The point I am making is, you have a crisis. That crisis is being identified and presented to the country solely as something that had come about because the previous government hid some of the debt repayments that are due. I am saying, well, there may be some truth in it, although you couldn't have been totally unaware of that. But I am raising another issue of government policy. How long can we continue in this fashion when even the resources that we do possess, even the resources that we own, are not put to use because there isn't sufficient investment by the government as a matter of policy to use it so that we can get returns subsequently. I am not saying, again, I'm conceding, you can't do that overnight. Maybe it will take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But unless we start somewhere, what is going to be the state of our economy? The gap between domestic and foreign expenditure, for instance, highways and ports, are all indicative of these anomaly that I'm highlighting. And at this particular moment, I want to take one example to demonstrate this. And I've chosen the occasion here in Parliament to deal with this example. For one, this is an example that illustrates what I'm saying about the large picture. But that example itself is an important one. And I'm saying it here because I want to be certain that what I say goes down on record, and I say it carefully so that there is no misunderstanding as to what I'm going to say. And this concerns the 65,000 housing project for the north, or for the north and east. It is estimated that 137,000 houses are necessary to meet the housing needs of the north and east after the war devastation. Now, this has to be met somehow. It was much more, 250,000 houses at some particular point in time 5 years ago. And we repeatedly kept appealing to the government about government's commitment to build houses. I remember, Honorable Minister for Special Assignments, even during the last regime, you answered several times at budget debates when we raised this. And we asked the question, if the Indian government can give us 50,000 houses, where is the commitment of the Sri Lankan government to build houses? And there was none. Now we have a strange situation. Indian government gave 50,000 houses, which was a huge gift. But your government is now offering to build 65,000 houses. Far more. I mean, if India could give 50,000, you are now offering to build 65,000 houses. Except, there are several issues that have arisen with regard to this particular project. The Indian housing, each house cost 550,000 rupees. 550,000 rupees. There were various issues with regard to that. That money was not enough. Nevertheless, it was estimated that you could complete a house for 700,000 rupees or 800,000 rupees. Now, the 65,000 houses project, each house is estimated to cost 2.1 million, 3 times the value of an Indian house. When the housing need is 130,000 odd, you're offering 65,000, half that number, for 3 times, each house, 3 times the value of the house that was built through the Indian housing project. When, even if it is not 3 times. Even if it was twice, meaning even if you require 1 million to build a house comfortably today, still you can build 2 houses for the price of 1. 2 stone houses. When you say a stone house lasts 2 or 3 generations. Our people build houses so that they can give that as dowry to their daughter, and then it passes on. It's a stone house. It is, as they say, set in stone. It is it's permanent. So when you can build a permanent stone house for 1 million rupees very comfortably, a prefabricated steel house is being offered for twice that amount of money. I went and inspected the house yesterday in Jaffna. There's a model house that has been built. I wanted to see it for myself before I spoke in Parliament today. I have read reviews by experienced civil engineers, and those are not very good. So I'm not merely basing it on what I have seen with my own eyes, with a non-expert layman's eye, but with a background of knowledge that I saw from qualified persons. I have taken photographs. Already it's coming apart. The walls are moving apart. Prefabricated, they have brought in the steel and they have fixed it. Already the gap has come, and I want to table this picture of the gap that has already happened in this model house. It's beginning to move apart. I table that photograph. The gauge is very, very small. There is some material which has been put in between 2 tin sheets, probably to not to pass heat. But you shake it and it shakes. A stone house doesn't shake. I was scared to shake it harder because I might have made the wall collapse. Yes.
Formally
Yeah.
Write a letter to the Prime
No,
Minister.
I'm doing that, but I want to place it, that's why I said.
From your political party,
Yeah.
objecting to the,
No,
what your views
thank
are
you.
being said.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah.
That's why I said I want to do this carefully. I want to place this on record because I don't want to be misunderstood. Our people need houses. Now, this is what I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't want it to be said that we have opposed the giving of houses. That is not my intention at all. We are very, very grateful. We are very grateful, let me repeat it, that the government is willing to offer 65,000 houses for free for our people when they need houses so desperately. But that doesn't mean that we should close our eyes to something that is so blatantly obvious to us. And that is why I'm doing this. It shakes. I asked the occupant about the house. She's very glad. I must put that on record as well. She's very glad that she has got a house. She showed me the photograph of the hut she was living in before. And she said, who would have given me a house like this? It has furniture given, beds, tables, chairs, kitchenette, 2 fans. It has a solar panel, water supply, all of that, the package. But you can't do anything to it. That material you can't get here. If it breaks, that's it. I don't know whether there's a warranty period. The 50,000 houses plus several other projects, housing projects, were given to the people at the time when beneficiaries were chosen, were given on the basis of most needy. So let's say 75,000 odd houses have been given to the most needy. Now when you choose beneficiaries, it is the next section, not the most needy. The others who are going to get these houses. And they are being given 2 or 3 times more house of value. But really, we don't know whether it is of that value. It will cause a huge social imbalance. Plus, we asked the people, do you think it will last? They said, we don't know whether it will last. Some engineers have told us it won't last 10 years. To my lay knowledge, I didn't think it would last 5 years. So, but that is not all. Government is willing to spend $1 billion on this. $1 billion on this. 65,000 into 2.1 million. Now, it is true that you are getting them on concessionary terms. It is true. You're getting it on concessionary terms. But if you build 65,000 houses for half the amount, your cost would be $500 million, not 1 billion. Stone house, and it will be a stone house that will last for generations. We have looked through the facility. You also have a grace period. You don't start paying now, you start paying 1 year later. All that is true. But eventually you have to pay. That is why I said this is also demonstrative of the larger picture. Borrow now, better rates, all that is true. But you have to pay eventually. So you have to pay eventually. And a 10-year period to repay this whole thing. We want the government to take a relook at this. We want the houses. Our people need the houses. But we want it done in a way that will be acceptable, not just for the recipient who will be thankful anyway, but also for the society. Now, when you do a project like this, it also generates employment. Now, when the other houses were built, it gave employment to people. And I have done a working of how much people can earn off this. If you build it for over a year, it can give employment to quite a number of people. It can actually give employment to 13,000 workers for 5 years. And we have that workforce locally itself of masons, carpenters, where they've just done all of these other houses. Local. They employed labor. It was owner-driven, that had its own faults, but we can learn from those faults. Some of these houses are being given, and it should be 2 female-headed houses. So owner-built model may not really suit, but you don't have to go that way. You can give it to contractors. They will employ workmen, and they'll build the houses. So if you employment to 13,000 people for a period of 5 years and spend half the amount that you will spend, why on earth would you want to spend so much more that benefits so much less? The tender procedure itself has serious flaws. I was told in August last year who's going to build the house. I was told the name of the eventual builder. I've said this in public before. And then a tender procedure is, I was told, I'll tell you where I was told. I was told on stage when His Excellency the President came to hand over the land in Sampur in late August last year. And in September, a tender is called for. Just 12 days time to bid on very specific 65,000 houses, all of these specified, tailor-made for this. And there are serious flaws, and I don't want to place all of that on record here, that's known. And eventually, this is happening. This is steel. There is many steel manufacturers are looking for dumping grounds. Prices of steel had fallen or about to fall, looking for dumping grounds. Do we want to give them the dumping ground? And what are they getting in return for that? And who else is getting what in between? Is a very serious question that has to be asked. So, in this $1 billion US is a big amount. I mean, in the overall picture, it may be a small cog, but this demonstrates a policy flaw. It shows the insensitivity to the real local need and the long-term benefit. I mean, my house in Jaffna, I only had to do a little bit of repair, was built by my great-grandfather. A stone house built 100 years ago, still stands. I go and live there today. Will this last that? And you're paying double or treble the amount of money that a stone house costs. No, this was built by my great-grandfather. And I still am able to live in it. Not at a time when house building technology was in the primitive stages, a stone house. Yeah. So, why do we do this? Even I would say, even if a stone house costs more, you will have to look at future and you will have to invest in that. Exactly. When you ask these people specifically, what do you prefer, a stone house or a tin house, then they don't want to say it. This is another thing. Forms are published in the newspapers to apply. And now, after this issue has been raised, a new clause in the form that people have to say, I accept this unconditionally without any change whatsoever, all of that, and sign. Somebody who doesn't have a roof over his head will take it. It looks like a caravan. That doesn't accord with how our people are used to live. Of course, I mean, it does have, I must be fair, it does have, when you have a solar panel, when you have some furniture, all that adds value. No question on that. But that is not the dire need. The dire need is for a house, and if you can build a house for 800,000, another 200,000, you can give some more, and make it even still within $1 million. You can provide so much more. So something that is so blatantly obvious. There seems to be some obduracy to see the obvious, to refuse to see what stares in your face. And I would urge the government to kindly reconsider. I'll take the Honourable Minister's suggestion. We have already made our representations without wanting to embarrass the government. But since this seems to be going ahead, to avert further disaster, I thought, and also for our own people to understand why we have taken up this position. It is not because we don't want houses. We desperately want them. but it also must be done in a manner that is acceptable, in a manner that makes even financial sense. So this illustrates in a way that what I've been saying about the whole of the economy and the approach and the policies that are being pursued. And maybe it was a shock for the government, for the Prime Minister to come into the House and say that this is really our debt commitment and we have to raise additional revenue and we are changing our proposals. But along with that, I would urge the government to take a relook at the policies, long-term policies, and somehow make those changes even gradually so that our debt burden doesn't keep growing and we become accustomed. I'm afraid we have already become accustomed to it, but that we look for ways to reduce it, and that can only happen by being bold in changing our fundamental economic policies. Thank you.